Hello and welcome to what I'm referring to as Transformation Tuesday, which my intention is to create this broadcast and post it in a few places online. And then this is going to be the pilot episode for what I'm hoping is going to be a weekly broadcast where I interview a number of different people around the subject of personal transformation. So for those who don't know who I am, my name is JJ Brawley. I am a San Diego resident. I have lived in San Diego my entire life. And while I have traveled all over the world many times over, San Diego is where my heart is. It is my home and where I run a business and have a family and two kids. And I love San Diego. So that's where I'm at. And what we're here to do today is talk about my journey and personal transformation. Of course, in subsequent weeks of this broadcast, I'll be bringing on others and interviewing them, but I thought the first episode should really just be me. And if you are interested in me or the work that I'm doing, then this video broadcast is probably going to resonate great for you. If not, then thanks for tuning in, and I hope you'll maybe learn a thing or two about me by the end. So this broadcast should happen every Tuesday. That is my intention, to be really transparent. I have been dreaming about this broadcast. Let me wipe these off. I've been dreaming about this broadcast for a number of years. The idea of creating a show or interview process where I talk about transformation is something I find dear and close to my heart. And the purpose of it is to really bring some of the conversation that happens behind closed doors out into the light, specifically in regards to Tantra, especially here in the United States, where Tantra is widely regarded as having something to do with sex or sexuality. And so I'd like to shine a light on the aspects of Tantra which have nothing to do with sex and sexuality, and at least for me. Yeah, I hope to have you back here and watch subsequent episodes. But today I'm just going to talk about me and my own journey, which for me started back in 2003 with a very simple weekend course in neurolinguistic programming. And that ended up being a weekend course that I now enrolled in that took a year to complete. And that created some massive shifts in my life, my way of thinking, my way of being, my way of relating to myself and others. And at that time, I was so gung-ho. I thought neurolinguistic programming is the shit. I mean, I still use it today. I still find it to be quite important. And I would definitely not dissuade anyone from enrolling themselves in an NLP program. I really feel like everyone would benefit from it. It is an amazing thing. But that journey, that step had come about right when I was leaving the music business. I had owned a nightclub. I was really on top of the world at that time, I thought. And I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with myself when my business kind of came collapsing down. There was some issues, and I decided, I just want to work on myself. And that was great. And in that, I also decided I was going to go back to school, and I wanted to get my degree, and I began that process. And while I was a student in school, I accidentally found Buddhism. This is a totally sidestep from where I'm planning on taking this conversation, but Buddhism became really important to me. I started attending Buddhist temple every Saturday, and I really loved it. I loved Buddhism. It really resonated with me. Before Buddhism, I identified as being a devout atheist, and there was nothing that you could have done to convince me that Buddhism was going to be my path. So when it fell into my lap, it was like, whoa, okay. I had grown up in a very religious household. Catholicism was our religion, and we went to church on a regular basis. We read from the Bible, and Bible school and study was a big part of our life. And I had always felt that Buddhism was just another religion, and from my teachings, it was also considered satanic. Anything that wasn't part of the Christian faith or didn't follow the Bible was seen as satanic. So I had stepped away from the church as a young man. It just did not resonate with me. That's a very different subject we'll talk about. But in stepping away, my decision to not be part of the church and be an atheist, I lumped Buddhism in with all things having to do with religion. And then I discovered that I was wrong. Buddhism, while there can be a dogma attached to it, it is more of a spiritual path, and it is a path that requires you to think. And that resonated with me as an atheist. When you go to church in a Christian type faith, usually you sit in pews facing the front, and there's a minister or a pastor who will often read to the congregation from the Bible and then give you an interpretation of it. You say some prayers and you sing, and you just have to accept that his interpretation of it was correct, and there was no questioning it whatsoever. And that's just not the way Buddhism is taught. In the Buddhist temple, you would sit in circle, and we would take turns reading from the varying Buddhist scriptures, the sutras. And then we'd have a group discussion around what we thought it meant. Everyone's voice mattered. Everyone was encouraged to share, to think, to analyze. And I was just like blown away at that. And by sitting and listening to different people with different perspectives, it really shifted my life. So first I had this huge shift around NLP, and then this Buddhist thing. And it was like, I was like, really just like, wow, this transformation had occurred, and I wanted more. I was hungry. I was like, okay, what else is available? What else don't I know? And I became obsessed with just learning about Eastern philosophy. I began reading tons and tons of books on everything from personal growth and mindset to business and finance. And I'd also started a new business and as a personal trainer. And I had prior to that had been in the martial arts and thought, oh, this is going to be easy. And I found out that doing the work of a personal trainer required some additional business skills that I just didn't have. It was rough. So I sought out a coach. I hired a coach, and my first coach took me through a 6-month program to teach me some simple stuff about marketing. It was about copywriting, sales copy, and how to use social media to bring clients into my business. And that at that time became a hyper focus for me. And I was really, really digging it and loving it. And I actually got really good at it. But one thing I took note of when I was with this coach is he mentioned that he had his own coach, that he always had his own coach. And he was really intent on expressing how important it was to always have a coach, and instilled in me that I should always have a coach and always be seeking out coaching as well. And that really just resonated with me, especially when I would watch videos from his coach. I thought, damn, this guy's amazing. It's really good. By the way, my coach's coach, his name was Dax Moy. And Dax Moy at that time was a personal trainer to the royal family. And he had an amazing story that I just thought was great. He grew up in a very violent home, like myself, not unlike myself. And at a young age, had decided he'd had enough of his dad, and his dad was really abusive. And Dax openly discusses this. He stabbed his father, and police were involved. And they took him away, and he was given a second chance. Is a long story short. He was given a second chance. He was told to join the British Royal Marines, where he ended up just super excelling as a Marine through a series of transformational events. Somehow he became the personal trainer to the royal family. And I just thought that was amazing. If somebody like him could go from being in this poor family that he talked about, in this system of violence, and now being one of the closest, most trusted people with that family, it really thought to myself, well, I see myself like, why can't I do that? And I think that his story really also just, it inspired me so much so that I was for sure going to continue on this path of being a transformation coach. at the time, as a personal trainer, my primary gig was helping people transform their bodies, their lives, their mindset. And so it behooved me to go out and learn more things and to be around people who had also changed and transformed their own lives. So I was going to a lot of seminars, going to a lot of workshops, just surrounding myself by really amazing, amazing people. And somewhere in there, right around the same time, I discovered Landmark. And I love Landmark. I know that there are people who don't, but I spent 12 years on and off going to different workshops and seminars at the Landmark building. And it was quite profound and very helpful for me for where I was at. It really helped me sort all the crap that was going on in my head about myself, my life, my future. And it was super helpful. I would not dissuade anyone from taking Landmark seminars. And I know there's others who feel differently, but if you ask me, I would ask you to put yourself in the Landmark Forum. It is a life-changing program. And for each individual, it's going to be a very different experience. And if I had like magic powers and I could snap my fingers, like you wouldn't be allowed to drive a car. That's how important I think it would be. You would not be able to drive a car or get a job until you had completed the Landmark curriculum for a living. Like that's like, if I could have that power, like it would be law. Like that's how important I think it is. But I digress. I was also very involved with MKP around in those years. When I discovered MKP, which just stands for Mankind Project, which is also a transformational program for men, I began attending men's groups, and I just loved it. It was a very different experience, men supporting men and men getting together in circle and having just really deep, authentic, connective conversations around emotions and the things that men deal with as being men, and the pressures put on us about being a provider and a protector, and what did it mean. And I really did also enjoy my time within MKP. But I also, was just hungry. I wanted more. It seemed to me like there was just still something missing. So I would occasionally explore more esoteric things, attend spiritual events, go to Tantra workshops. And I really liked the Tantra workshops. Really, there was one Tantra workshop that I remember clearly, like it was yesterday. I went to this workshop. I remember the woman that invited me, it was to be a date. I thought, well, this is interesting. I'm going to go to this Tantra workshop with this woman. Well, the facilitator, her name was Joy. And Joy was the Phoenix at this time. And she's now Joy White Peacock. And Joy was quite an interesting person. I can't remember. I think that I went to other things of her before this one night. I'd known who she was. And there was this puja event. And at this puja event, there were some exercises that we did that I don't want to give it away, but in the end, I had at that point had been in kind of a broken relationship with my family and not spoke to my mom in about a decade at that point. And after that event, I realized that my mom was who she was, and there was no change in her. That the only way to have a relationship with my mother was going to be to change the relationship I have with her and with myself. And that event allowed me to see that. And to make a long story short, I called my mom after not talking to her for 10 years, and she answers the phone. She's like, I've been waiting for you to call. I was like, Mom? She's like, yeah, I know who this is. And we just started talking as if nothing had ever changed. Nothing did. My mom was still exactly the same person. And to make a long story short, the relationship that I ended up having with my mom when she passed last year was incredibly beautiful. It was fantastic. I want to backtrack and say that with the combination of going through the Mankind Project and Landmark, and at the same time knowing that I was going to be having kids, I had to face my own shadow. I had to face the fact that I had a broken relationship with my abusive father. And he had passed away in 2002. And I had never visited his grave. And so a big part of my shift had to do with facing that. I knew that stepping into fatherhood, I did not want to carry with me the wounding that I was at that time carrying. So I went and visited my dad at his gravesite. I wrote him a letter. I posted that letter on Facebook, and for every year for over a decade, I've reposted it. My daughter, my middle child now is 11, and I'm really proud to say that like my daughter does not fear me. I'm not an abusive man like my father was. I really was able to face those challenges and overcome them and become this more heart-centered being that I am these days. So moving forward, by the way, I'm looking at some notes that I wrote. All of this kind of leads me to some additional huge shifts in my life, my business, my relationships. But I was still super focused on business, and my relationships were like personal relationships were really suffering, including probably the one with my wife the most. I was just all about making money, and at one point, I was even making a multiple six-figure income. I was doing really well for myself, almost seven figures actually. I was doing pretty good. I had 2.5 gyms. I had a gym, I had a self-defense studio, and I also was running a outdoor boot camp at the time. And I was doing great, but I was miserable. I was miserable. I was working 80 to 90 hours a week, and my social life continued to suffer. I found that I had just major social anxiety. My social skills were they just were non-existent. And I was taking a beating. However, at some point I found Taoism. And I really, at that time, when I discovered Taoism, I felt like it was the answer. I love what Taoism has to offer, by the way. And I did, in fact, fall in love with the philosophical approach to life that Taoism offers. And I still use a great deal of Taoism in my life today. But I will say this, Taoism is a very paternal, it's a very masculine approach to the world. It's a male-led, male-dominated philosophy, and it is very heady. While there are practices that are about being embodied and connecting with energy and moving and flowing energy, things like microcosmic little breath, it is very headstrong. I found that Taoism at the time offered me a chance to review and renew my spirituality. And even though I had been a practicing Buddhist before that, I never considered it a spiritual practice. I just felt like it was a practice. It coincided with my martial arts training. It coincided with other things going on. I didn't feel like it was religious at all. And I enjoyed meditation quite a lot. I struggled with meditation a lot. That's why I kept going, is I really wanted to get better at meditation. I have ADHD. I'll reveal that meditation is extremely challenging for somebody with ADHD. It's hard to stay present. It's hard to stay focused. But in 2017, I came upon divorce and a series of events soon after that I won't get into right now, but let's just say I went through a dark night of the soul. And I had to reinvent myself. And in that process, I had to reevaluate my life. I reevaluated my friendships, my family, what family meant to me. I had to reevaluate what my purpose was in the world, because along with my divorce, I lost my business. And all of a sudden, being a personal trainer, being a self-defense instructor, didn't feel like it was my calling anymore. So there are parts of this next chapter of my life that I have to be honest, they're very blurry. I get the order out of alignment. It doesn't really matter, I think, the order. What matters is where I'm at now. But back in 2018, I attended a Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And for the first time in my life, I found inner peace. Now, I could cognitively explain inner peace after I completed with Landmark. I could tell you what that looked like, what it felt like, what it appeared like, but I did not embody it. I did not know it inside my body until I completed that Vipassana. And I experienced a level of calm that I've never known in my life. That was one of the biggest, most transformational pieces of the work that I've done. And I will say that sitting for an hour for somebody with ADHD is hard enough, but to do multiple hours at a 10-day retreat like that, it was life-changing. It is another thing that I would not dissuade anyone from doing. If you're someone who struggles with meditation, then Vipassana is the answer. If you think that you can't sit for an hour, Vipassana is the answer. I think it's one of the greatest things that the world has to offer humanity. I now make a yearly contribution, a donation to the Vipassana Center that I attended. If you would ever like to speak to me more about that, I would love to offer you, any advice or information you need about that. But basically, a Vipassana it's life-changing. It's one of those things that, again, if I could snap my fingers and make it law, like, people would be required to do it. Like, it was not doing it just seems, I wish that I had discovered it a decade earlier. Right around that time, I had also attended my first Tantra retreat. Now, I've been to a bunch of Tantra workshops that are a couple hours long that are incredibly impactful. But between attending the California Tantra event and the Vipassana, my life shifted in ways that I'm still not sure that I can put into words, but it was definitely for the better. And I can never go back to that old version of me, that person who was obsessed with material things and money and making a living and having a big company and creating a Fortune 500 business. Like, those were all like pursuits that I was heavily involved in. And then I just let it go. I just decided it was not that important. But I wanted to do something different, and I really wanted to do something that would be impactful in the world. I wanted to help people transform their own lives. Now, I've been to therapy. In fact, I still see a therapist, and there are amazing tools that you can get from seeing a therapist on a regular basis. Talk therapy is important, and I would not dissuade anyone from doing that either. I think that it's great, but it's also limited. You're limited in talk therapy by first by time. Usually most talk therapy sessions are 45 to 50, maybe 55 minutes in length max. They're never actually 60 minutes. And so I soon after those two events, I found myself in a program for men. I met one of my friends, Dustin Garrick, and I began to really reevaluate what it meant to be a man in today's world, and began to examine the patriarchy within myself and the ways in which it had influenced me, or unnotably influenced me. Because despite the fact that I identified as a feminist, I actually found that I had been infected by societal expectations of what it meant to be a man. And there was a lot more to it that I realized. And I figured out pretty quickly that working with men was going to be my niche. Like, this was it. Because I know I'm not the only man in the world who is lacking in the areas that I was lacking in. The ability to have access to my emotions, to be able to communicate and articulate how I was feeling in any given moment, to be able to relate to other people on an empathetic and compassionate level. They were skills that just, prior to those two events, they just weren't present. I could outthink you, at least I thought I could. And of course, that's all ego-based stuff. But so this 1, 2, 3 things that just move me from this really intellectual way of being to being a more passionate, more sensitive type man. But despite all of those things, I still had always felt like something was missing. And that dark night that I had mentioned was part of all of this. A series of events occurred that ended up with me being in an accident. I had a crippling injury. My back was messed up. I could barely walk, let alone work. I ended up with several odd jobs over the course of a couple of years then I ended up without a car, and I ended up riding a bicycle all over town, and I then ended up homeless and staying with friends, all while fighting a legal battle around my kids. Somehow managed to pull through all of it. Now, I believe that in 2019, I was just starting, I know the dates I could get wrong, but I was just starting to get back on my feet in the field of fitness and health. I was like, okay, finally ready. I'm going to go teach self-defense, and I'm going to be a personal trainer. And I was thinking about going to school. I had just started to fill up my client schedule, and I started making some good money again. And guess what happened? Right at the beginning of 2020. You guessed it, was the pandemic. And to me, the pandemic was a breath of fresh air, a chance to just slow down, press in the clutch, I like to say, and just take care of things that had been putting off, like going back to school. At the beginning of the pandemic, without a job and staying home, it's like, oh, what am I going to do? Is there something I could be doing online? Is there something else that I should be doing in the world? Is this the universe sending me a signal that being a personal trainer is not what I'm supposed to do? And so I found a schedule and a level of self-discipline during the pandemic like nothing that I've ever known in my life before. And I experienced some things during that downtime that I don't know that I could really put into words, but I began catching up on all the little things that you fall behind on in life, from the online courses that I had previously signed up for and never completed, to books that I purchased that were sitting on my shelf that I never read. And I just found time to relax. And soon I was pretty much at working from home with a very regimented schedule, like just enjoying my solitude and the schedule that I had created for myself. I even scheduled in time to watch TV and catch up on some Netflix. And I even scheduled in time to get on the social media. I was really like, if I'm going to be alone and do this by myself, I'm going to work on myself. And I completed a 300-hour Kundalini yoga teacher training during the pandemic, a somatic therapy certification, a few other things, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with all of these certifications. I'm kind of a certification / workshop junkie. I've been chasing these things for quite some time. I just thought it was fun. And, I like leaning into that dark edge and seeing what might be possible, what's available on the other side of the unknown. It feels good to me. So I attended yet another Tantra retreat, right when things started opening back up at the beginning of 2021 in Cabo. And this time it was with Monique Darling and Peter Peterson. Sean Roop was also a guest at this thing. And I'm still mind blown, because I really felt like I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to face the world. I want to get out from behind the computer screen and go out and meet people and talk to people. And this Tantra retreat, I quickly got over my shyness, my social awkwardness, the self-esteem issues that I was having. I really began focusing once more on my fitness and getting my body back in shape, which, by the way, I'm proud to say that I am currently in the best shape of my life. During that dark night of my soul, I had reached a peak end of 220 pounds. I'm now 160. I have a regular workout routine again. I go to the gym 3 days a week. I do yoga at home 5 days a week. I meditate every day. Life is grand. Yeah, people always say, how are you doing? Life is fucking awesome. Life is grand. Just up the personal growth, making myself a better human being, doing the work, I think I found myself at yet another Tantra retreat shortly thereafter. And then I also enrolled in a 3-month program with Grandmaster Montauk Chia, who's the oldest living Grandmaster of Taoism currently. And he's amazing, by the way. And Taoism is awesome, but I have been really submerging myself in Tantra, it is a feminine philosophy, by the way. If you don't know it, it is a matriarchal philosophy largely taught by women to men for thousands of years. And since I've had one foot in that more masculine men's group type stuff and one foot here in the Tantra community. I really wanted to balance it out. So going and training with Mr. Montauk Chia was a lifeline dream. It was amazing, nothing shy of absolutely transformational yet again. If you have the opportunity to go do it, I would, male or female, doesn't matter. He was an interesting guy. He's an old man and he has a odd sense of humor. And he does mock Tantra quite a bit, I may say. He burps a lot. I guess when you're a chi master, you move a lot of energy, which for him comes out the sound of loud belching, which the first couple of times he did it, I was like, and after a while, you just got used to it. He just does it all the time. So I felt like after that teaching that I needed to balance it back out again. And I went to yet another Tantra event. And it was then that I realized, you know what? This Tantra thing is fucking awesome. And I started thinking, I want to be a Tantra teacher. Like, this is my path. I have done a lot of different things, a lot of things that there are lots of opportunity in. But the idea of being a Tantra teacher is what has resonated with me the strongest, the thing that I've been the most passionate about. So I went to a few of my teachers and mentors and I shared with them my desire to be a Tantra teacher. And I received nothing but support, 100%, accolades and encouragement. Like, yes, JJ, this is you. This is your path. You should be doing this. Why aren't you doing it? And so with a little nudging, I began the journey to become a Tantra teacher. I led my first transformational workshop towards the end of, was it now 2021? Just as a trial, and it worked out really well. I mean, it was good, and I've just kept going. One of the things I loved, by the way, about being a personal trainer is that you are required, if you would like to continue being a personal trainer and you want to maintain your certification, you're required to continue education. And I love taking classes. I love taking workshops. I love doing things. So I got my degree in kinesiology and just, decided that if I was going to do this, I was going to do better than everyone else in the field. You're required to do 20 hours every 2 years. Well, I'm a pretty motivated, ambitious guy. So I started doing 20 hours every year. Well, over my years in the fitness industry, it turns out you go on the websites and look at all the available options. I've taken all the courses. There wasn't really much more to take. So I've kind of reached master's level personal trainer status. I'm a master's level kettlebell trainer. I'm a master's level functional trainer. I've got well over 10,000 hours in each of those categories over the course of 25 plus years. And again, I thirst for more. I wanted more. And I could never really figure out what the more was. And I started looking outside of my industry for more and more and more. And believe me, I've found little parts and pieces that have perked me up, but I've never found anything like Tantra that really excited me or had me as passionate. So I will say this, what I've gotten from Tantra is like nothing else I've experienced. My self-esteem, my confidence, not to mention my self-awareness, have all massively improved. I spent some time also in a program with a man named Guy Shahar, who is a lovely Tantra teacher on the East Coast. His Tantra company is called the Tantra Institute, and I really have Guy to thank for his program that it really it helped me to see my true potential. And he offered me the opportunity to become a facilitator for Tantra Speed Date, which I've now been doing for, I think, about a year now. Yeah, it's coming up on a year real quick here. I think seeing that Guy was a man in the Tantra space gave me the confidence to say, you know what, I can do that. I can be a male in the Tantra space. So when I asked around, one of the first things that someone said was like, well, are you trauma informed? I said, well, yeah, I've done my somatic therapy practitioner training, and I've done another somatic 15-hour training with somebody else, which was just a shortened version of it. And they're like, okay, well, then you're ready. And I was like, okay, well, then let's do this. And by the way, as a self-defense instructor, I worked with traumatized people much more than a character share. Most people walk into a self-defense studio aren't looking to learn self-defense because that looks like it's cool. Most people, women specifically, when they would walk into that self-defense studio, was because some sort of trauma had happened and they were looking for skills because they wanted to make sure that no one could do that thing to them again. So I have a soft space in my heart for anyone who's been through a traumatic experience. And yeah, I really do. So the last Tantra event I went to was in October last year. That was a training with Charles Muir. Another 10-day training. Was a freaking grand. That wasn't the last. It was the second to last. I intend to do more training with Charles Muir. Charles Muir is also Guy Shahar's teacher, but the event that I really want to get to here is one called Awaken as Love. And Awaken as Love was like no other Tantra event that I've been to. It was definitely a trauma-informed training. The facilitators were phenomenal. James and Taina were the two main facilitators, along with my dear friend and Tantra teacher and mentor, Kathleen Cienfuegos, who, by the way, I'm going to be interviewing her next week for this same thing, Transformation Tuesday. Through the experience at Awaken as Love, I have to say I've been truly awakened as love. I think the title says it all. I have a new lease on life. And by the way, I kind of overstepped this piece back here that I had a kind of a spiritual awakening through that dark night of the soul. Through that spiritual awakening, I also had a Kundalini awakening. And when both of those things happen at the same time, it's overwhelming. My nervous system was fucking fried. Like that social awkwardness that I was talking about, that I couldn't be with people. And then the pandemic really separated us. And then one step after another, and then Awaken as Love. And Awaken as Love, I am in love with the festival, with the event itself, so much so that I've decided to step in a position of leadership. I am volunteering to be the event lead, the coordinator for the event, which will be happening here in San Diego, out in Del Sur, California, May 20th through the 27th. And I'll put the link down below, but I felt like I should at least mention that event because it's wonderful. So this is just like a bird's eye, 50,000 foot view of my own transformational journey and some of the things that I've done. I haven't even got to speak to you about all of them. That's just a broad stroke. Point being is that Tantra has changed my life so much so that I've decided to make it my life. And, the fitness environment was great, but it's a very patriarchal, very misogynistic environment, and I'm through with it. I've seen another side of the world and another side of life, and I've chosen to move on to other things, and Tantra is that path. Now, I know that a lot of people, when you say Tantra, they think it has to do with sex and sexuality, and there's so much more to it. It can be that, but it's not. One of my Tantra teachers would get very offended if you would refer to it as sex or sexuality. She's like, oh, I can't even mimic her accent. It's fucking Americans, always with the sex. There's no tantric sex, she would say. I'm really fucking up trying to mimic the accent. She has a East Indian accent mixed with Canadian. I can't duplicate it. And she was like, always about the sex. Oh, you're so obsessed. And she was like, yo, you can practice Tantra and you can make love, and you can make love while practicing Tantra, but there's no such thing as tantric sex. And she was very adamant about that. Whereas I've had other Tantra teachers who might disagree, but I'm going to go with her version of it because it makes more sense to me. I want to talk a little bit about some events, Tantra events that you might be interested in. The first is actually tonight, today being the new moon, is also the vernal equinox. So we're holding a tantric ceremony this evening. I'll post a link under this. Something that I love doing is bringing people together to connect in authentic, just genuine, authentic communication. Just be really present with each other. Own who you really are. And it's not a skill that a lot of us have. So I run an event every month called the Authentic Relating Games. Um, and this event is one of those events that really gave me tools to be able to drop in and just be myself and communicate with people. And this Friday for the Authentic Relating Games, we have a little twist to it. This theme is erotic storytelling night. So this one's going to be a little bit on the more adult and risque side. I'm going to encourage participants to really own up and open up about that dark side that no one wants to talk about. You know the side I'm talking about, the sex. We're going to talk about sex. It's not a sex party. We're just talking about it. Just going to talk about sex and try to undo the taboo. That's what I call that. I'm also a host of an event twice a month, 3 times a month now, actually, called Cuddle Party. And Cuddle Party is another incredibly transformative experience. The name, if I could ask the company to rename it, I would, because the name kind of thwarts some persons. Yes, cuddling happens at a cuddle party, but that's not really what a cuddle party is. A cuddle party is actually a workshop for people to come and explore communication skills around boundaries and intentions. It's also a place for people to explore and practice with rejection, practice saying a yes, practice saying a no, and really lean into just asking for the most craziest things you could possibly think of for the practice of it. You know, what would your life be like if you learned the tools to just ask for things you want instead of being like shy or coy about it? Just be upfront. And what if you also had the tools to actually say no, to say no to things that you don't want? And that's what we do at a cuddle party. It's fucking amazing. And some of my burner friends are on my case right now about it, but I believe in it and I don't feel I've done anything wrong. But a cuddle party, cuddle is about consent, which is the 11th principle of Burning Man. And Cuddle Party is a nonprofit organization, by the way. And if I could, again, snap my fingers and make a law, there would be a law in place that said you were not allowed to attend Burning Man or any Burning Man related event unless you've attended a cuddle party. Like, okay, you're probably thinking, thank God JJ's not in charge. But there are a couple of times I've said that during this broadcast that there are things that I just believe in. I really, really believe in. So we've got a cuddle party coming up on Sunday. That one happens at 4:30 in the afternoon. I'll go ahead and post that link. And last but not least, next week, my dear friend Monique Darling will be in town. And she's hosting a play party, a temple night. I'll post that link underneath here. And then my men's group meets on Wednesday next week. And I'm looking for men. I'm looking for men who want to be better men who want to have access to their emotions, who want to be better fathers, who want to be better brothers, who want to be better fucking living, breathing beings. Occasionally, I'll have someone who considers themselves non-binary. And what I have to say about that is if you are in a male body and you want to be better, if you want to be a better fucking human being, then come to my group. If you're in a female body, I'm sorry, I can't do that for you, but that the Tantra can. My men's group is for male-bodied individuals. That said, there's one more event that I want to mention, and I will also put that link there. There's an event. No, there's 2 more events. We're going to do it Thursday next week. I'm hosting a woman named Tara Gardner. Tara Gardner is a NVC coach. NVC is another system of communication that is really all about listening. It's really badly branded, and I've been saying this for years. They call it nonviolent communication, NVC, but the program is not so much about the way you talk as it is about the way you listen. And the founder of NVC, Marshall Rosenberg, even later on in his career said, I probably could have done better with naming it. I should have called it compassionate listening, because the good Lord gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Unfortunately, most of us never learned to listen. I know that I didn't. So that's why I'm a big proponent and I promote NVC. Last but not least, probably the most important part of the whole broadcast, I just want to mention that on Friday next week, the 31st, we have an Awaken as Love taster event. If you're curious about Tantra at all, this is a low barrier to entry, short night. Come give it a taste, see what it's all about. Between the new moon event that I just told you and the Tantra taster, the Awaken as Love taster, like if you really want to learn about Tantra, these are really safe. They're white Tantra, meaning it's platonic, your clothes stay on. We work with energy only. There's no nudity or sexuality. I know some of you are like, well, that's a bummer. And some of you are quite relieved. I get it. It's okay. But they're great, great things to do. I'm going to close this up by saying I have a website, tantrasd.com. If you go to my website and join my email list, you will get a weekly newsletter sent to your box every Tuesday with a list of all the events happening in San Diego that are related to Tantra. If an email is not your thing, you can go to my community group, Tantra SD. So if you go facebook.com/groups/Tantra SD, you can join the group. And it's just a community group for like-minded individuals to come and share and talk and meet each other. And then last but not least, there's a Facebook page. You go to facebook.com/Tantra San Diego, and you can see potentially tons of different events happening in San Diego, including ones that I'm the facilitator for and others. And if you happen to be a Tantra facilitator of any type and you're interested in coming into the San Diego marketplace, please reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to reach. I am certain that I can help you get a foothold in the Tantra community here in San Diego. Until next week, with peace and love in my heart, I love you all. Thank you for listening.